Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Hey friends, God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be talking about a pretty important book today called End the Stalemate. End the Stalemate. Move past cancel culture to meaningful conversations. I've got one of the authors with us. I'll get to him in a minute, but I want to thank a few friends who've been sending in donations. Again, we are not in our fundraising season, but we are thankful for every donation that comes in. So shout out to Lisa from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. And also Linda from Moore Park, California. They both requested a copy of my book, Assault on the Image of God. That's coming your way, ladies. Thank you. And India from Louisiana, Gail from Minnesota. Thank you guys so very much. We appreciate it. So today, I'm very blessed. You know, we've had Sean McDowell on the podcast before, and he co-wrote a book with today's guest, Tim Muehlhoff. So Tim is a co-author. He is also a professor of communication at Biola University in La Mirada, California. He teaches classes in conflict resolution, apologetics, gender and family communication. He's also co-director of Biola's Winsome Conviction Project, and I can give you that website. It is winsomeconviction.com. We'll be talking a little bit about that. And Tim has written extensively in the area of cultural engagement. Thank you. And conflict, including Beg to Differ. That was a previous book. And of course, his newest book, co-written with Sean McDowell, End the Stalemate. Tim Muehlhoff, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Good to see you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Glad to be here. I'm so glad you had Sean on already. We're both huge fans of him. He's great.
Yeah, he is amazing. And of course, his dad, right, Josh? So I was out in Southern California for 17 years, lived in Orange County for a while, then moved to LA. Very familiar with Biola. I've been there to the campus. I knew a professor there. Share a little bit about how you got connected with Biola, and then, of course, how you and Sean McDowell connected, and then to bring about this book.
Well, before I became a professor, me and my wife were on staff with Campus Crusade for Christ crew for almost 25 years.
Wow.
And I was part of something called the Communication Center. Crew was forward thinking enough to create a center on evangelism and apologetics, because we saw culture starting to shift to move away from the Christian perspective. Sean was a student of mine way back in the day. And obviously, I just looked at him and thought, my goodness, not only are you an amazing communicator, but God's hand is on you. Yep. And so now we're both at Biola together, and his YouTube channel has nearly 300,000 followers. So I love the fact that he doesn't just know apologetics, he's a practitioner. So we both are concerned about today's argument culture. And I said, Sean, let's get together and do something. And so the end result was this book, End the Stalemate.
Well, and yeah, on the website, by the way, it's on Amazon, friends, but there's a website, endthestalemate.com. It says, yes, we live in cancel culture, but that doesn't mean that we as Christians need to conform to our world. Instead, we can be a beacon of sanity that promotes meaningful conversations around what matters most in this life and the next. So that's endthestalemate.com. The book by Sean McDowell, Tim Muehlhoff. So Tim, tell us about, before we get into the contents of the book, tell us about the podcast, Winsome Conviction, and then there's a website there. You guys can go to winsomeconviction.com. Tell us what that project's all about.
Well, it was funded by two donors who are concerned, just like all Americans, that we're honestly losing the ability to talk to each other. There was a survey that was done 2 years ago by Pew Research. 98%, David, think about that. 98% of Americans would say incivility is a threat to this country. 65% would say, I think we're at crisis levels of incivility. And this is left, right, center. We're all concerned about incivility. We just don't know what to do about it. And so that's why the Winsome Conviction Project was created, is Christians, you know, what Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. We should be opening lines of communication with everybody. those within the Christian community and those without. But to be honest, David, we're doing a really poor job of being an example to people of how to have passionate conversations that are civil, taking our lead from the Apostle Paul. Speak truth, but do it in love. I don't think our reputation as Christians is that we speak with love, charity, grace. And I think we're missing a golden opportunity to that 98% of Americans. We can have hard conversations, but do it in a way that's charitable.
So let me just ask you right off the top. Yeah, I love the subtitle, Move Past Cancel Culture, because obviously we're in that. Christians are being discriminated against, being censored, being shadow banned, being, taken off as certain, social media and shouted down. Obviously, we don't have popular voices because the truth is not popular. But it says move past cancel culture to meaningful conversations. So, Tim, what advice would you give people who are watching or listening right now that are wanting to have these conversations and maybe they're being shouted down or some people get pretty hostile because Jesus is offensive. The truth is offensive. And it doesn't matter how you present it. You can be the most loving. You can tiptoe. You can bring flowers and say, Jesus is the only way, the truth. And that's going to offend people, no matter how you say it. So just right off the top, people their guards are up. It seems like they're so defensive. What can you share with people who want to have these conversations?
Well, David, I would say we need to learn to practice as Christians with each other first, that good Christians can disagree about a multitude of issues. The Bible gives us the freedom to disagree on certain theological issues or political issues or social issues. Now, obviously, there are things that make us evangelical, right? Salvation found in Christ alone. The Bible is inspired, inerrant, the physical resurrection of Jesus. But there's a bunch of other issues that we have the freedom to disagree with each other, like how we're going to vote in November. Remember, with mask mandates, churches took very different positions. We could talk about the use of preferred pronouns. I think there's leeway that Christians can both say, yeah, I'm never going to use a preferred pronoun, but others could say there would be situations that I would. And David, at that point, you see how poor we do allowing each other to disagree. I have a friend of mine who wrote a nuanced book on critical race theory. Nuanced, which means he both talked about the concerns of critical race theory, but also said, but I think it can also be used by Christians to understand this really complicated issue of race. He got fired from a Christian organization for writing a nuanced book on critical race theory. So we better do a better job with each other. And that's why we created the website, David, and the stalemate.com. You're going to go there and you're going to learn and understand two Christians who really disagree with each other. Very articulate Christians. One is going to argue, listen, I know President Trump's a little rough around the edges. He says things I wish he wouldn't say. But when you look at his platform, I think a Christian has to vote for President Trump. You're going to take a look at another Christian on this website who's going to say, I cannot vote for President Trump because of some of the things he says, the way he says it, and some of the things he's endorsed. Now, if your listeners are listening to what I just said and they're saying, oh, come on, that one perspective is ridiculous. No Christian can read their Bible and have that perspective. We call that mind blindness, which means a person is all good or all bad. And the website is going to teach you basic skills. It's totally free. You don't need to have read the book to do it. But we're going to start with your heart attitude. The Bible talks about the heart 500 times. And Jesus says it is from the heart that you speak. So the first thing we're going to do on this website is we're going to address our heart. Like, do we allow for Christians to disagree on how we're going to vote when November comes?
Oh my goodness, you shared so much there, Tim, but I just want to give the website again, endthestalemate.com. It is important to agree to disagree lovingly and respectfully. when it is not a doctrinal, an essential of the faith or a doctrinal issue. Obviously, there's some wacky beliefs out there. But when it comes to politics, and that's what we're heading toward, a big election in November. I mean, then you've got the 30 million Christians who don't even vote, and that's a problem. But the ones that do and take opposing sides, it does, for someone that reads the Bible, it does seem like this is a worldview issue, Tim. I'm going to go to one of the questions that I wanted to ask, and that is, you point out that we've become increasingly polarized in our country. And it's not just about politics, it's about almost everything. But what do you see as the reasons behind us becoming so polarized?
David, it's a great question. Honestly, we could take the rest of this interview to try to answer that question. We had Arthur Brooks, the Harvard researcher, on our podcast. And Brooks said, America doesn't have an anger problem. We have a contempt problem. So I asked him, okay, what's the difference? He said, anger is you and I can be mad at each other, but we stay in the relationship, right? We still continue to go to the same church. We're part of a family. We're neighbors. Contempt is, this church would be better off without you. You're a family member, but I'm cutting off all communication with you. By the way, a survey was done on the 2016 presidential election. 33% of respondents said, I no longer talk to a family member because of how they voted in the 2016 presidential election. That's contempt.
Wow.
And I think as Christians, Paul says in Romans 14, when he's talking about days and diets with Jewish and Gentile believers, I do not want you to have contempt for each other. I want you to stay in fellowship so long as it's a disputable matter, not a theological matter, a core theological matter. But David, we're splitting over everything. Mass mandates, churches are splitting over race issues. 68%. Christianity Today asked pastors in America, if you could quit today, would you do it? If you could swing it, 48%, David, said, I'd quit today if I could swing it financially. And the reason why, how my congregants talk to each other.
What? Wait a minute. What was that last part?
So top 5 reasons. Number 3, how congregants, the people in my church, talk to each other when they disagree. How they talk on social media, how we talk to each other face to face, church members no longer talking to each other, boycotting a church service because I won't sit in a pew next to that person. That's what the Winsome Conviction Project tries to help churches open up these lines of conversation. And David, in 5 years we've been in existence, people are splitting literally over everything you could think of.
And yeah, we've seen it. It's sad. People breaking fellowship over things, like I said, that aren't essentials of the Christian faith or the doctrines that we need to stand by. And it is sad. We are to contend for the faith, but not be contentious when we contend for the faith, right, Tim?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so by the way, friends, we're speaking with author Tim Muehlhoff. He's also Biola professor, Biola University. When we come back from our break, I'm going to ask him, how does social media encourage us to dehumanize others? And that's where a lot of the fight is out there online. We'll be right back on Worldview Matters.
Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream.
Get free activation now with promo code DAVID. Friends, if you know anybody who's interested in sponsoring Worldview Matters, we love Harbinger's Daily, Freedom Project Academy, Patriot Mobile. Send our producer an email. The address is worldviewmatters@fpeusa.org. Or you can just go to worldviewmatters.tv and hit the contact there. The website, again, friends, endthestalemate.com. The book, End the Stalemate, is also available on Amazon. The other website we want to make sure you have is winsomeconviction.com. So Tim Muehlhoff is with us, our guest today, co-wrote the book with Sean McDowell. Tim, so what about social media? What about people having, what do they call it, keyboard courage or something like that? They're alone at home and they can say whatever because they're not going to get immediate pushback or feedback. So how does social media encourage us to almost dehumanize others?
So I'm not going to demonize social media. It is both the problem and the solution to today's argument culture. So we have to embrace that right out of the gates. Social media isn't going anywhere, and we need to be able to model on social media how to have productive, civil conversations. So I would say it's exactly what you said, that dehumanization happens because I'm not face to face. So imagine you and I are at a coffee shop and we're having this disagreement. I would at least have to watch the volume because I don't want other people to be turning around looking at us. Because we're face to face, I would reel it in a little bit. I wouldn't call you a derogatory name because I'd have to actually live with the consequences of that. And so this keyboard courage you talk about really is true. I just let it rip when I watch something on YouTube. I don't censor what I say. I make black and white statements about people. People are all good, all bad. And I would just say to fellow Christians, Jesus is serious when he says you will be held accountable for every word that you utter. And he mentions the word careless, David, which in the Greek means that is like spur of the moment. A careless word is one that I've not really thought about, but I'm going to just react. And I think that describes a lot of YouTube communication is in real time. I'm responding where I've not had the time to process. Mm-hmm. And so what does Paul say? Speak truth, but if you can't do it in love, don't do it. Peter, probably one of the most famous apologetic passages in the entire Bible, be ready to give a reason for the hope that is in you, Peter says, but do it with reverence and gentleness. So I would say to all Christians, if you can't do it with reverence and gentleness, speak the truth, then I don't care what the medium is. I don't care if it's a talk at a coffee shop or online. You have to weigh both the content of what you're about to say, but it has to be mirrored with gentleness, reverence. And I think today we're just not doing that, particularly on social media. People are saying the nastiest things. David, we actually did a conversation, me and Sean, on preferred pronouns. Sean is of the opinion that he would never use a preferred pronoun and has really good reasons for that. I would, depending on the situation, and we both go to the scriptures to make our argument. Wow. So we posted it on his YouTube channel, and I'm literally writing an essay on Christian Scholars Review Journal on the comment section. So Dave, and this is all public information. I mean, you posted this publicly. I won't mention names or anything, but people are saying things like, there's no way you can read the Bible and have Muehlhoff's perspective. I can't believe Biola would hire a person like Muehlhoff. So if I understand it correctly, Muehlhoff thinks it's just A-OK to flat out lie to a person. And to be honest, those are some of the nice ones, David. So I'm semi calling him out. Saying, by the way, on Sean's channel, a lot of non-Christians watch Sean's channel because Sean does a great job inviting atheist thinkers on, treats them really well.
Yeah.
Their comments, hey, so here are Christians watching two Christians trying to have a civil conversation about a delicate issue, and these are the comments that they're saying. What is wrong with you, Christian?
Oh my goodness.
I think we need to take that as a rebuke and think about, now, you don't have to agree with me or Sean, but have a respectful attitude as we agree with each other.
Yeah, that's such a good point because you see Christians argue and you just think to yourself, that cannot be a good witness to the world. I mean, now, again, when there are serious doctrinal issues or essentials, we must sometimes sharply disagree, but biblically, but we really do need to be better communicators. And Sean, I remember when he was on, he was telling the story. CNN contacted him. The producers wanted him to comment on something, and he agreed to do it. And then they said, "Well, I'm sorry, we can't have you on." And he said, "Why?" He said, "You're just too compassionate." Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
I don't remember. Was that during COVID? I don't remember what it was, but he shared this story. So CNN, they want the fire. They want you to they want the old, what was those old shows on TV, Jerry Springer and all the nonsense shows where they get people to fire up and talk and fight with each other. That's what a lot of reality TV is. It's not reality. It's just stir people up enough, get them in a bad situation, get them to fight against each other. Anyway, I'm off track a little bit, Tim, but I wanted to ask you about civil engagement, because it's a huge problem in America. My personal conviction is we are here because the church has not been engaged, and the church has not been voting biblically, speaking about issues, outside of the Sunday morning at church, Monday through Saturday. And that's a huge problem. But why do you think people are hungry for civil engagement?
Well, I honestly think, David, they're looking at the trajectory of where this is going. And we just got back from Capitol Hill. We were invited by 3 Christian ministries to go to Capitol Hill and the Pentagon and speak with people on both sides of the aisle. So let me say this. They're sick of the incivility as well. And so the assassination attempt on President Trump, it was condemned by everybody. But I think there's some people who would say, that doesn't necessarily surprise me that our words have turned into violence, actual violence. Yep. So that's the 98% of Americans who are saying, listen, we can't do this. David, it gives the church a beautiful opportunity to be a counter example. Like, we're convicted people. We feel very strongly about pro-life issues, religious freedom, traditional marriage, but how we talk about it, our compassionate response, is what's going to really set us apart. So in the book, we offer different ways of approaching hard conversations. And the very first way is something called bricolage, which is I attempt to piece together your perspective of all the experiences that you've had in the past. I'm not going to jump in and disagree with you right out of the gates. I want to collect information about you, your history. There's something called narrative injury. Like, what have been the moments in your life that you've been hurt, even hurt by God? I debated a YouTube atheist live in one of my classes. And when he was 9 years old, he started to feel depression take root. And his parents were very religious. And his parents said, listen, pray, God can heal you. So he took a whole year and prayed to God as a 9-year-old. Nothing happened. It got worse. And he walked away from God. Listen, if my first response to that is, okay, I'm going to jump into my apologetic defense of the problem of evil. I've written 2 introductory apologetic books. I have an argument for the problem of evil, why I think God is still good. But is that the time to do it? I think that's the time to empathize with this man saying, my goodness, how frustrating that must have been to hear that God loves you from your parents, is all powerful, and you pray and God won't help a 9-year-old?
Yeah.
I mean, at least feel the pain first, rather than jump into my 3-part argument, which, by the way, I actually believe that 3-part argument. I actually believe God is good in the presence of evil. That is not the time.
Right.
The time for me to empathize.
Yes.
And correct or disagree.
Okay. There's a proverb I'm paraphrasing it. A wise heart ponders how to answer. Yes. Meaning we don't respond right away, no knee-jerk reactions. We ponder. Sometimes we get counsel on how to respond. But were you kind of referring to what you talk about in the book, sympathetic awareness, when what you just explained?
Yeah. Oh, so we've had podcasts not have us on because of my chapters. Let me just be honest. My chapters. Because sympathetic awareness is this. I was a theater major at Eastern Michigan University in a department that every professor was gay. Every single professor wasn't just gay, they were militantly gay.
Yeah.
Like they were really promoting a worldview.
Mm-hmm.
I became a senior. Remember, I'm now a student with Campus Crusade for Christ. My senior year, you do a performance live. It's open to the public. And I really felt led by the Spirit to do a monologue from the gay activist play Bent, where one character, Horst, is talking about his love that he had for another male prisoner, but never showed it while he was alive. And now that prisoner has tragically been executed by the Nazi guards. And I did that monologue just to show to my gay faculty and friends, listen, I'm not oblivious to your pain.
Mm.
Like, you all know where I'm coming from. Come on, guys. We've had this argument for 4 years. You know where I stand on sexuality. But I also want to remind you, I feel your pain. David, we've had major podcasts say no to having the book because they say you're condoning the gay perspective. I said, I'm not. I'm really not.
Yeah.
I'm empathizing.
Yeah.
And then I want to have a conversation about it. But remember that old adage, David, that's so true. People do not care what you think until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And I think as Christians, we don't believe that's true. I lead with truth. I don't lead with love. And I think in today's argument culture, we might lead with love as we're moving towards the truth.
I love, the Gospel of John, how he says in verse 14, Jesus was the perfect balance, all grace, all truth, full of grace, full of truth, and it's something to strive for. But Tim Muehlhoff, author and professor, we want to encourage people to go to the website, endthestalemate.com, and also winsomeconviction.com. We really appreciate it, brother. I know the book is going to help a lot of people. It sure is timely with a big election coming up in weeks, not even months. It's coming up soon. But thanks for your time, and God bless you. Hopefully we'll do this again.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate you having me on.
No, not a problem, sir. Great podcast. So check out that book, friends. Sounds wonderful. Or at least go to the podcast, Winsome Conviction. And we appreciate you guys again, powering the show under God's sovereignty. We'll keep doing it. God bless you. And as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.